The world didn't end with a bang, but with confusion. It was as if the very fabric of normal life unraveled in slow motion, leaving everyone caught between disbelief and dread. The sun rose over silent streets, where the usual hum of traffic was replaced by an eerie stillness, broken only by distant sirens and the occasional shout echoing through empty avenues. On a college campus, 4 students, Danny, Kyle, and 2 others, woke to sirens, not alarms. The blaring noise cut through their dreams, jolting them upright in their beds. Confusion quickly turned to fear as the red and blue lights painted their walls, signaling that something was terribly wrong outside. News alerts flashed: riots, violence, chaos. Phones buzzed with frantic messages and televisions blared breaking news, each update more alarming than the last. Social media feeds became a torrent of panic, rumors, and desperate pleas for help. Danny looked out the window, her heart pounding. The campus she knew so well was now unrecognizable, bathed in the harsh glow of emergency lights and filled with the sounds of distant chaos. Students were running, some attacking each other. Panic spread like wildfire, and the sense of safety that once defined their home was gone in an instant. Shouts and screams echoed through the night as friends became strangers and fear took hold. She tried to call home. The lines were dead. Each failed attempt only deepened her sense of isolation, as if the world outside had been cut off completely. Fear crept in as the power flickered and died. The darkness pressed in, making every sound outside seem closer, more threatening. The students huddled together, unsure of what would come next. The group pushed desks against the door, a flimsy defense. Every creak in the hallway made them jump, and every shadow seemed to move with menace. They whispered plans, but none of them knew what to do. Meanwhile, a father, his son, and their neighbor were at the grocery store, unaware that their ordinary errand would turn into a nightmare. The aisles were crowded with anxious shoppers, everyone grabbing what they could, eyes darting nervously. A scream cut through the parking lot. Someone was being attacked, brutally. The chaos outside spilled over and the sense of safety vanished in an instant. The father shoved his son and neighbor into the car, hands shaking as more attackers appeared. He fumbled with the keys, desperate to get them to safety as the violence closed in. He floored it, smashing through shopping carts to escape. The car lurched forward, metal screeching as they sped away from the nightmare erupting behind them. Both groups realized the world they knew was gone. In a matter of minutes, everything familiar had been stripped away, replaced by fear and uncertainty. The first hour of the end had begun, and no one knew what the next would bring. 2 hours later, the school was eerily silent, the ticking clock echoing through the empty halls. Shadows stretched across the floor as the last rays of sunlight faded, and a heavy sense of dread settled over the building. The students knew they couldn't stay. Fear was written on every face as they stuffed their belongings into backpacks, hands trembling. Some whispered, hurried goodbyes, while others simply stared at the doors, desperate for a way out. The hallway was chaos, friends now monsters, eyes empty, attacking. Screams echoed as classmates turned on each other, driven by something unnatural. The air was thick with panic, and every step felt like it could be their last. Armed with scissors and a lamp base, they slipped out, trying to be invisible. Every creak of the floorboards made their hearts race. They moved in tense silence, ducking behind lockers and peering around corners, hoping not to be seen. Kyle froze at the sight of his infected lab partner, whose vacant stare sent chills down his spine. Danny grabbed his arm, snapping him back to reality, and together they sprinted down the corridor, dodging fallen chairs and scattered books. Meanwhile, the father's group was trapped on a jammed highway, surrounded by honking cars and terrified families. The world outside the school was no safer, and escape seemed impossible as the minutes dragged on. Suddenly, an infected smashed through a windshield ahead, dragging a man out into the chaos. Panic erupted as people screamed and tried to lock their doors, but the danger was closing in from all sides. Thinking fast, the father reversed, bounced over the grassy median, and sped down a side road, desperate to escape the gridlock and the horror spreading behind them. Both groups were running for their lives, barely ahead of the spreading terror. Every second mattered as they searched for safety, knowing that the world they once knew was gone forever. The students reached the campus edge, exhausted and jumpy. They found a convenience store, squeezed inside and locked it down. In the dark, they scavenged water and food, catching their breath. Kyle shook, haunted by what he'd seen. The father's car was nearly out of gas. He pulled into a deserted strip mall, spotted an abandoned car, and siphoned gas. Every sound felt dangerous, but he got enough to keep moving. For a moment, both groups had a fragile sense of safety. A night fell. The students, now armed with bats and a fire extinguisher, left the store. At the same moment, the father's car arrived at the strip mall. The two groups locked eyes, friend or foe. The car engine's noise drew infected from the shadows. Suddenly they were fighting together. Bats swung, a wrench cracked skulls. Pepper spray flew. The infected swarmed, pushing them back. The father shouted, "Get in the car!" The students piled in, bats and all. The car lurched forward, barely escaping the horde. The car sped into the night, headlights slicing through the darkness, 7 survivors packed tightly inside. The hum of the engine was the only sound, a fragile barrier against the chaos they'd just escaped. Each person clung to the hope that they'd left danger behind, but uncertainty pressed in from every shadow. Just hours ago they were strangers, people with separate lives, separate fears. Now their fates were intertwined, and every decision mattered. In the cramped space, every breath, every glance was a silent agreement to trust. The father glanced at the students in the mirror, searching for reassurance. Danny met his eyes, her gratitude unspoken but clear, a silent thank you for his courage for not leaving them behind. Kyle looked at the son, seeing his own brother in him. Memories of family flickered in his mind, reminding him what was at stake. In that moment, he vowed to protect the boy no matter what. They weren't just random people anymore, they were a team, bound by necessity and a growing sense of purpose. Each small gesture, each word of comfort built a fragile trust between them. Fear lingered in the air, heavy and real, but hope sparked in their eyes. They weren't alone, not anymore. Together they found strength in shared vulnerability. As the strip mall faded behind them, its empty windows reflecting their past, they silently promised to protect each other. The world outside was uncertain, but inside the car, a new bond was forming. United by chaos, they became more than survivors. They became a family, forged in crisis. Exhaustion weighed on them, but so did determination. Whatever tomorrow brought, they'd face it together. In the darkness, they found each other, and that made all the difference.